Now, 49 to 51 inclusive are related and will be taken together. Deputy O'Callaghan to move 49 and to address it and the group of amendments, if you would please.
Yeah, and just on 49, Count Corla, and be very brief, this is a very important amendment. In the Society of Chartered Surveyors of Ireland, when they were into committee, were very clear that they would be happy and willing to do this work, but they were also very clear that they would like to be asked to do it very quickly and given notice on that from the Minister. So I'd ask that the Minister would accept this amendment and would give notice to them that this work is required as quickly as possible.
Deputy Thomas Pringle and then Deputy Owen O'Brien.
Yeah, thanks, Ciara. And I think that's vitally true, and I want to support what Deputy O'Callaghan is saying. And the Minister indeed has said it himself earlier on in response to a previous amendment that he can't instruct them, but he can ask them. And so that's I think is something that we should be doing, and it's vitally important to make sure that the scheme is fit for purpose, and so that the Minister would ask that they would provide the report as quickly as possible. And then Amendments 50 and 51 are just relation to the timelines that allow for things to happen, so to reduce them from 12 months to 6 months as well. Thanks.
Deputy Owen O'Brien. Deputy Owen O'Brien.
Thank you very much, Chair. At the outset, the Minister made a claim that this scheme will provide 100% redress for homeowners. That is not true on the basis of the current framing of the scheme, and the reason why is because the costings underpinning the scheme on the basis of the legislation in front of us were made by the Society of Chartered Surveyors in January of this year, and on terms of reference made by the Minister and the Department, not the SCSI. So unless this amendment is passed, and unless the Minister requests the SCSI not only to update those costings in advance of the opening of the enhanced scheme, but also unless the Minister revises the terms of reference and includes the option of foundations, then when the scheme opens, it will be very far from 100% redress. And a concrete example was given to our committee by Martina Hegarty from the Mayo Pirate Action Group. She described a very modest-sized 90 square metre home. She outlined on the basis of the current costings from the SCSI report and the expert panel's recommendations of the implementation of that would give her a grant size of somewhere between, this is important information, Minister, would give her a grant of somewhere between 160 and 170,000 euros. The costings she is getting from contractors in her county at the moment place the cost of the remediation and replacement of that dwelling now 20, 30 or 40,000 euros above what the grant is. So in order for Martina Hegarty and the many, many affected homeowners like her to rebuild their home on a like-for-like basis, it is not 100% redress. If you accept this amendment, it sends a clear signal to SCSI not only to start undertaking that work, they spoke to us at committee and said they would need approximately 3 months, but it also sends a very clear signal that you would also consider amending the terms of reference. Why is that important? Because if you don't include foundations in the costings now, when this scheme opens, you can't review those costings for another year. So even if the NSAI, as you mentioned earlier, complete their work on foundations early next year, there would be no review of the costings until 12 months after the commencement of the Act, and therefore it is absolutely crucial to update the costings as they stand and provide a comprehensive range of options so that if and when you amend the scheme by way of regulations, all of the costings are calculated in place, up to date, and provide people closer to the 100% redress, which is not currently provided in this scheme as it stands.
O'Donoghue.
Minister, I concur with the other speakers, and again I said that the SESI for the updating of their figures, the template stays the same. All they have to do is update the existing cost at the moment. It doesn't take 3 months. We updated our data sheet on the 1st of July when we got all the price increases from all the different providers into this country. So saying that it was February that we got the costings that you are going voting on tonight. February. How much has it changed since February? The costings can be upgraded in the space of a week from all the different suppliers and different providers come in and give the template stays the same. It's only a case of upgrading the costings of today's costs, which can be done within a week. If everyone else can do it, I can't understand why the SESI can't do it. And again, Minister, this again is common sense. And if you ask people that are doing it on a daily basis, because they're dependent on their living, they can actually do it. But when it comes to other bodies, it can take them 2 and 3 months, and that's why we're so far behind. And I do believe myself, Minister, it should be index linked going forward.
Deputy Derek O'Leary.
SCSI model discriminates against smaller homes in particular, smaller semi-detached homes. Can you give a commitment that in setting the regulations that there will be an uplift for smaller homes in relation to the square foot rate, which as currently constructed, not to cover their full costs?
Deputy Paul Murphy.
And Corla, I'll be extremely brief. This is the crux of the issue. 100% redress, nothing less. This is an amendment aimed to scrap the asterisks and the small print that you have put in that in effect turns that into 80% redress. It means that it's not, homeowners would not be able to access it, and it is completely immoral and unjust because it puts a burden on homeowners who are at no fault for this whatsoever. So this is essential, Minister. You should accept the amendment. I would also encourage Deputy O'Leary to follow the example of Deputy McHugh and vote in favour of the amendment, because you clearly agree with it and to send the clearest possible signal to the government.
Briefly, Ken Corley, this is the core of this issue. This is what the demand is. This is what the chant was from tens of thousands of people who came to the streets over a year ago. It is to ensure that people are able to have their homes remediated. I'm sure the Minister probably believes his own spin, or, you know, like some of the stuff he said earlier on, that this is 100% up to 420,000. That's not true. Like, it's simply not true. And if it were true, then people in my county, people in other counties would be happy with this legislation. But it's not. They know. They've done the numbers. They've sat at the kitchen tables. They've taken out the pen and pencil, and they've looked at what this means for them. Deputy O'Brien gave an example there from one of the campaigners, which this means that she would have to get about 40 or something thousand euro extra to rebuild her home. Many people in this gallery, the reason they're travelling here, the reason they're outside the houses, the reason they're campaigning, know that those figures are real. And for those, depending on the size of the house and their circumstances, it can be even higher than the 40 or 50,000, because there is not 100% redress. The SEI costings exclude a huge amount of costs that will be associated with rebuilding these families' homes, and the costings themselves are so far out of date that they need to be brought up to scratch. So this is the core. If the Minister believes in his own guff that there is 100% redress up to 420,000, then he should support this amendment and give the people what they deserve, and that is 100% redress.
I wish to continue on that issue of, I don't know which microphone to speak to, it's like a disco here, but anyway. Sorry? Yeah, well, except the other one lit up. But look, I don't want to take time about microphones. It is on this issue of 100% redress. We've been repeatedly told, I was at the committee, the Minister wasn't there that day, but certainly the officials to whom he's now speaking were there. And we were repeatedly told that it wasn't going to be 100% redress, that people were going, simply because of inflation, if nothing else, and there has been considerable price inflation in the time period since the prices upon which this scheme is based were drawn up. So I would like to know, how does it, and I've asked this question a lot of times, I'm still waiting for an answer, but the Minister's free to answer it whenever he chooses to answer it. How does allowing people to downsize cost more money? I'm not saying that people, because the amount of money that they're going to get is set out. So how does allowing them to downsize cost more money? Because I had an amendment to that effect with Deputy Pringle, and it was ruled out of order on the basis that it was introducing a cost to the Exchequer. Now, we both accept that we can't introduce legislation which introduces a cost to the Exchequer. What neither of us accepts is that this particular amendment actually introduced any cost to the Exchequer. But if the Minister or the officials to whom he's speaking so earnestly could outline how it does actually cost the Exchequer more money if people are allowed to downsize. Please, Minister. You've curtailed this debate. You're guillotining. Just tell us how it's going to cost more money if you downsize. Very simple question. It's not for me. Thankfully, I don't have a home that's affected by pyrite, but I know people who have. and they're not going to be able to build the same size house because the money that you're going to give them is not going to build the same size house. They're pensioners. They have their mortgage paid off. They're not going to get another mortgage. People don't give pensioners mortgages in the real world. So they're not going to be able to avail of this scheme unless they can downsize. So can you tell me how it costs more money to allow them to downsize, please?
I want to support this amendment, and I can't imagine either what kind of thought process is around it or what kind of thought process came into that people are not allowed to downsize, because we do all know there's massive, savage, indeed, inflation in the building costs. You name it, right across from everything. Even it's the foundations out of it, but the blocks, the cement, the labour, the tradesmen, and indeed, above all, the timber. You know, that was called a kipping in rural Ireland, and you want to import it, and it's costing a fortune. So, for someone, the people, and I, like Deputy McNamara, thankfully don't have a house affected, and we're lucky and we're blessed. But for people who have, and that are elderly, or not elderly, but anyone over 50 or 55 won't get a mortgage. So how is it going to, you'd have to wonder how amendments like that ruled out of order that are cost to the exchequer, because surely if you cut your cloth according to measure and you cut it down, it's going to save money in the long run, and you're going to have people happier. Maybe children have moved on and whatever, they don't need the same size house. So it makes, for better reasons, it makes perfect sense to allow them to downsize.
Minister.
Thank you, Count Corla. Just to say,